Okay, so maybe we have a town hall, or maybe we don't. Let's see what happens. This is the Cannabis Closet podcast with Can Queen and MJ. There you are. We are coming to you with the town hall in St. Louis, Missouri. So yeah, let me just bring it up on screen, see how we can hear it and everything, and then we're gonna go off screen at 6:30 when it starts. Okay. Okay. Looks like there's a few people there. Hello. Do you have headphones in? She doesn't.
I can't be
So is there, make sure that they speak up, I guess.
Would it be better if I moved closer?
Yes, it would. Absolutely, it would.
I can
1000%.
barely hear you. All right. Maybe this seat. Is that, or do you want me like close?
As close as you can get without disturbing the panel.
Oh. Okay. I got this VIP hookup. I don't have a stand. That's for rich people. I don't have a stand. I'd be super grateful. Then I could smash my chicken tendies. Yeah, I'm hungry. Yeah, I don't know why I can't really hear y'all.
We're not really talking.
Huh?
Okay. You can't hear us at all?
Like it's very, very low on my end. Okay. Nice stuff. Let's see.
Yes, everybody make yourselves at home. Welcome to the new Tola. We've been literally working around the clock to get on the walls.
Can you at least hear them?
I can hear Brennan.
Oh, there you are. That's better.
So if you're in the comments, go ahead and tag your friends. This is Missouri Town Hall.
I sure do appreciate you.
We appreciate you. Yes.
Yeah, so I am live streaming. Oh, he walked away.
Oh, he didn't care.
He don't care.
He's like, I don't care. If you're in the comments, tell your friends we're here. We're streaming the town hall in St. Louis, Missouri, where John Payne and Brennan England are going to answer questions about Amendment 3. It is called The Pathway of to Power, right? The Pathway to Power.
I like this little like dab office you got going on here. You see this? This straight up office.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing.
We were there the other day. Speaking of which, show this ticker.
I think it's the table. It just kind of reminds me of like a filing cabinet. And I'm like, what you got in your cabinet? Is this the last year's tabs? Right. Oh, it's so pretty in here.
It's nice.
It's awesome.
So we're gonna go off screen, but we're gonna leave you on screen, so you're gonna be able to hear us. I don't know if you can see the comments or not, but
well, hold up. Let me.
There's nobody in the comment section right now. I don't know how much viewership we're gonna get because it's kind of late, but we're offering it, so it'll be there for anybody to watch after. So yeah, we're gonna go out.
Okay.
And then You'll be the only one in the room.
Okay. Well, no, I got a friend here that's going to hook me up with a stand. So we're going to actually plop it on the little desk here by the dab bar, and then I can go smash my tendies.
Nice. Yeah, I just want to get real close so that we can hear everything that they're saying.
Yeah. I think it's going to be, where are you thinking about setting up? Just like right here, over here on the desk? See if we can get a little closer.
Really hooking it up. Sweet.
Yeah, no. This is what happens when people come together for the greater cause.
That's right. If you're watching now or you're watching later, this event's being held at the Cola Lounge, and across the bottom of the screen, you can see Cola Lounge's Cash App.
I'm what?
Cola Lounge's Cash App, $ the Cola STL is where you can send them monies for a donation. They're renovating. They just moved into a new space. So, that's Brennan England right there.
I hear you out there shouting that.
So definitely hit up that Cash App. Throw $1 in.
That's on.
Throw $5
That's on in the house.
Help them out. Look, there's all the
Say hello, friends.
Nice. It's good to see y'all.
Yes. All right.
All right. So we're gonna leave the room, and it's all y'all now.
All right. Should I? No, because if I mute it, then you can't hear him. So never mind.
Yeah, you can't mute.
All right. Let's see how this works.
Perfect.
This is gonna be perfect.
Beautiful.
Excellent.
Okay.
And also, you won't need the headphones because we're gonna not be here talking. So.
All right.
Are those mics distracting, or is that all right? Or
No, that's perfect. It's all you guys right now. So.
Cool.
Sweet.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for live streaming for us.
Yeah, for sure. I'm gonna go smash my tendies down.
Yes. Eat those chicken tenders.
Say what?
I said yes. Go enjoy those chicken tenders.
Thanks.
So if you're watching now or if you're watching later, we're gonna pull out of the screen. The debate is gonna start here, or I'm sorry, the town hall. It's not a debate; it's a town hall. Is going to start here in a few moments. And so we hope that you get the information that you need from the individuals that are participating today. It's going to be Brennan England, who is the proprietor of the Cola Lounge. Definitely check it out if you're in St. Louis, and hit up that Cash App, $ the Cola STL, and John Payne discussing Amendment 3. So enjoy.
It's come on.
I move around. Yes.
Jeff and Jordan, the purchasing. Did you still want me here?
Oh. Brennan's got his hair now? You sit where you want.
That's why.
looks like we're good, man.
Do I need to tell me already formally?
Cool. He said good things about you.
All right. I always say good things about him. I knew that comment come back. Okay, bro, real quick, run me through what you want to do for Zoom again.
Oh, yeah. I started doing the Zoom. I started.
Oh my God.
But I'm not, I guess I'm not,
It's not a move, but I keep wanting to move.
what I'm not sure of exactly is where to send it. That's punctuality there, John. That's right on the money, buddy. How you doing?
I basically am always like,
You're scheduled to the minute, aren't you?
Yeah. It's easy when I live this close.
Sure, that's.
I'm working on it here, Craig. I guess maybe once I send it to you.
I guess my question is, so is there, what am I sending to the Zoom is my question. My feed is pretty basic.
Oh, yeah, we're not doing OBS.
Well, we are, but we're not. If we were doing it with OBS, we run everything through Zoom and pipe that through, but we don't have that set up. The other play is this is all recorded.
Yeah.
And you could host a Zoom and take questions in real time of it.
Yeah. But I'm sure I'm gonna take down. I want you to lose the Zoom link.
I'm saying I don't want you to lose anybody that you might have otherwise had.
Yeah, I'm just gonna take down the Zoom link.
Okay.
You got to wait. We'll go ahead and start the screen and put up our whole image.
Yep, I've done this test too.
Turn off the music. Yeah, yeah, it's like 5 minutes for intros for both of us. And then we'll basically,
All right, and I had test broadcasting on everything. Looks like it's running okay. So, go ahead and end that, and then whenever you're,
yeah, you just put up the whole image.
put up the screen, and I've got your mics off. You just give me a little cue whenever you want to go.
Just pull that Zoom link down real quick.
Okay.
Publish the changes. All right, in-person audience. So yeah, so the outline of it, I think I sent it to you. Just I'll give you a little bit of a brief intro on why we're here and why we're doing what we're doing. Thanks to the sponsors. I'll pass it over to you to tell us a little bit about, to summarize the campaign. And then we'll just, we're gonna go to about a 15-minute block of Q&A, okay? Where I'm gonna be taking a compilation of questions that either I have personally or that I've taken and compiled from online. So people have just been getting in polling questions over the last 3 weeks or whatever. And then we'll take some in-person, we'll take a break in there, okay? We'll do some in-person questions. And then if we have time, we'll take questions from online, and it just depends on how much you can cipher through trolls and spammers.
That's not easy enough. Yeah.
And I put up a notice like telling people not to spam or something, but listen, congratulations.
Yeah. Good luck. All right. Like bird and cat. Do I need to be close to the mic?
Test.
Talk again.
Am I good here?
Yeah, you better. Yeah, you were probably all right with that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you guys are both good. Cool. I'll keep an eye on it. I can probably dial you all then. All right. Just about ready to go. I would have thought from the test screen it would have rolled right into now go back to real, but I had to.
Got it. I think I'm gonna pull it up. So, okay, so the one thing that I think I will need help with, okay, once you're in there, you got it running, can you go into share and just start running out the groups?
In all of your, oh, yeah.
That, and sign out of my page, go to my personal, Okay, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and then sharing it to all the cameras.
Yeah, starting with them front end.
Sure.
And then whoever else from there.
I just gotta make sure that's not fuck up our stream. Oh, because we're streaming through that.
Okay,
The better play, Brennan, what to do there is as soon as I go live, which I am right now with this screen as it's loading,
Yeah.
just fucking blast through with your phone real quick to share.
okay,
If you can, if that's
Yeah.
right.
yeah, I'll do
And
that.
then we are at that point,
Cool,
we're live now, the mics are off.
so,
So,
perfect. If everybody else, make sure that your ringers or your phones are on silent, please. Sure that you just can't disclose the page, right?
yeah, that's where we're live through, if that's what you're asking.
Got it.
Yeah, you're right. I don't know if there's- I'll go ahead and share it in the third campus network because I'm admin. So we'll have to get my ass through. It's really nice to hear the torches everywhere.
Right, I was gonna say, and then after we actually start, unfortunately, I'll have to ask for no torches. Sorry.
It's just.
I forgot my fucking proxy in the car.
You tell me what.
I had to make a no torch rule in the office one, which is something I did not ever expect to have to do in my life. So new era.
Okay. We're loading some in. Sure. Popping off. You let me know when you want to go live in. We're going up to 3 minutes into the broadcast right now, which is the static stream.
Perfect.
And then also, was there any, did you think of any other polls?
I think we just got just a, are you yes?
Yes,
or
no, undecided.
Undecided poll going. Other than that, I think
I
we're
think
just,
that's pretty good. You can keep that running the whole thing and then just, all right.
and give me just 1 second, I'm gonna pull the feed up here just so I got it. Make sure my questions are ready.
Hey, why don't you get that remote control?
Oh, yeah. I'll do this here. All right, about 90 seconds, folks, and we're gonna bring it live. Clean it up, Mary. Get it together. Let's see, do you want me to introduce you as John Payne of the Amendment 2 Consultants?
No, campaign manager.
Campaign manager for legal.
You can do both, but
Specifically campaign manager for legal. Cool. All right. Roll.
5, 4, 3, 2.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight. Thanks to everybody that's in the room with us, too, for joining us. Thank you to John Payne, our guest. My name is Brennan, and I am the State Director for Minorities for Medical Marijuana. And I'm just going to give you a little bit of an outline for tonight and let everybody know exactly what the schedule is going to be so that we know what to expect. Then I'm going to lay just a couple of general ground rules for the experience. And then we're going to get cracking. So a little bit about me. So, like I said, I'm the State Director for Minorities for Medical Marijuana. M4MN is the largest minority advocacy organization for the cannabis industry in the world. We span over 30 different countries, 30 different states and 3 different countries. And I am fortunate enough to be the State Director for this one. That means that I make sure that Black and brown people, those that have been most affected by the war on drugs, have a space in the growing industry, and that we have less and less space in jail for reasons that we never should have been there. We do that through a lot of programming. We do that through initiatives and through organization. And I've used my platform to host events like this so that we can continue to make informed decisions as cannabis legalization becomes more of a reality for Missouri. That's it for now. We are also in the COLA private lounge where buds meet, one of the first private cannabis consumption lounges in Missouri. It's the first child of the St. Louis Cannabis Club, which is a resource network that connects the existing culture to the oncoming industry. And we do that through events like this one. We do that through services like a mobile bud bar. We do that with products like a CBD seltzer. And we do it with spaces like the COLA lounge. And the last thing to talk about is our sponsors. Tonight, we have 3 main sponsors that are on with us this evening. We have Good Day Farm, which we have somebody from Good Day Farm in the building with us tonight. We also have Organic Remedies, and we have Illicit Gardens. All 3 of these companies are major license holders in the state. And I just kind of want to talk a little bit about what that means to me, because the redistribution of wealth, first of all, doesn't happen unless it redistributes. And I'll just start with that. And in a time whenever brands, a lot of companies that even gave support for John and I's first discussion and debate back in April or back in February, either had too many funds that were invested or were too intimidated to kind of get in the middle of the crossfire of something like this because they thought that they might have too much to lose. So I really, I just want to take a minute to acknowledge these brands for setting aside political bias, their own corporate interests, and really making a statement that this type of discussion needs to happen and needs to continue. And that even though they very strongly support this initiative, they also really support there being very transparent conversations and constructive criticism moving forward. So I thought it meant a lot just to what their brands stand for and what their representatives in Missouri have really literally put their money where their mouth is to make sure that folks like me in positions like this have a voice, a space for a voice to talk about these things. So thank you to our sponsors. We appreciate you. So tonight we're going to talk about Legal Missouri 22, Amendment 3, which is it fair to say that it's kind of an expansion on Amendment 2? This is the sequel?
Yeah,
in a way.
I mean, it is literally Section 2 of or what
Right on.
Amendment 2 became Article 14, and this is adding a new section into that article.
Thanks. And with me to talk about it is John Payne, who's the campaign manager for Amendment 3. He was also a consultant for Amendment 2 and has been an activist and an organizer, more than an activist, has been an organizer in the cannabis legalization efforts for almost, if not over a decade.
Oh, or I started, I mean, really when I was still in high school, but back, I was very involved with Students for a Sensible Drug Policy at WashU, started in 2001. So that's where I really started getting into it. So I've been very active ever since then.
Thanks. So the way this is going to lay out is that John and I are going to have a conversation. Tonight is not a debate. We did a debate last time, and it was fun. We're both trained debaters. We both like the sport of it, and we know how to keep enough respect and enough decorum amongst us, even amongst the with the intensity to keep the topics on the table, which we got to do back in February. This time, I wanted to slow the pace down a little bit, and I wanted it to be more of a voice of the community for folks to just clearly ask questions and then for you to answer them. And then we're just going to do a follow-up to this. We're going to, I'm sure, I would assume you wouldn't have a problem with this, that we'll do like a fact-checking follow-up. We're going to go over the entire discussion that we have today and just kind of have a summary of it. Everybody will also have access to John and to Legal Missouri directly. You can reach out to them through their social media platforms. I'm sure John will have some contact that he can leave with us. So if you have questions after today, if we don't get to them in the comments, we'll make sure that your voice is heard. So the way this is going to be laid out, the structure is that first I'm going to ask John some questions after we both do some intros. I'm going to ask John some questions that I've taken both just from my own questioning and research, but also that I've taken collectively from social media over the last 3 weeks or so, just as I've been asking questions and polling online. The other piece that we're going to do is we're also going to do a Q&A with the live audiences that's here, let people ask questions in person. And then with time that allots, we are going to take questions from online, from comments on Facebook. And just a couple of ground rules. The main thing is that we just got to keep it clean, and we've got to keep it strategic with questioning. That means that if you ask a question that we've answered already, we might reference that question and kind of summarize. So try to keep up with things, and if there's something that we have already answered, a few we've already answered, then we'll come back. Then we'll just summarize on that. No profanity, no cussing, or excuse me, no contempt or insulting or name calling, no drama. We're here to ask real questions, and if we're I am giving you the time because I've organized this. John is my guest. If I'm giving you the time to speak, then I expect you to have the respect to ask a legitimate question for the sake of all of our time and strategy. This is a time whenever a lot of people don't have a voice, they don't have an opportunity to ask some real questions. So I encourage you to really take that opportunity to ask some solid questions. That also means that the questions can't be open-ended or left with generalization. There's an entire detailed list that I've left online, but for commenters online, just know that if you're spamming or if you're trolling, and you know what that means, that we will just be muting your account. We don't have time for that today. Getting into the goods. So, John, before I start asking you some questions, you just want to tell everybody you can give everybody a little bit of an intro of how you got to this point, and then tell us just in summary what Legal Mode 22 is here to do.
Sure. How far back do you want me to go? Right. As I got to this point.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I started in drug reform advocacy way back in, like I said, in high school, and then was part of Students for a Sensible Drug Policy. I'm against the drug war in its entirety. If I could wave a magic wand and prohibition of all these things overnight, I would. But it is there's a saying that tyranny, like hell, is not easily conquered. So it takes time. It takes a lot of hard work, and it's incremental. And so, in 2011, I started working with Show Me Cannabis, and we worked on a ballot initiative to legalize marijuana in 2012. It was a very grassroots effort. I enjoyed that work, and was proud that we gathered as many signatures as we did. But ultimately, we probably only got about 20% of the way there, just with almost purely volunteer efforts. And so, I decided I wanted to keep with it, but we would have to, assemble a real coalition in order to make reform possible in the state. So, we continued to work through the local legislature and had some mild successes there. There was the passage of the hemp bill, the CBD program, but ultimately, we were very frustrated that it didn't seem like the legislature was ever going to move on any real reform. So that's why in 2015 we filed the first attempt at passing what is now Article 14, and that campaign was a real heartbreaker because we gathered we gathered 200,000 plus valid signatures, and we fell short by about 1,000 in one congressional district, Congressional District 2, which is mostly South and West St. Louis County, some of St. Charles and Jefferson County. But we came right back, put Amendment 2 on the ballot in 2018, passed that with 2/3 of the vote against two other initiatives, one a statute and one the Brad Bradshaw amendment that literally would have put him literally personally in charge of the program. And then, we did in 2019 did some polling and saw that support for legalizing marijuana in Missouri was broad enough that an initiative could potentially pass here in 2020. And so we started to work on that and filed it, started gathering signatures. It was actually the smoothest signature gathering experience I've ever had in my life, right up until March of 2020, and at which point that just became utterly impossible. So we had to shelve that. But one thing that was good about that is we then had the opportunity to go back and revise the amendment and make some changes to it, which I think have made it substantially stronger. So, for instance, some of those changes are we made the expungement function automatic as opposed to something that people have to petition for. We banned any use of no-knock SWAT raids for any sort of marijuana offense. We basically said that the smell of marijuana does not constitute probable cause. A whole lot of very strong criminal justice reforms that we put in there that I think can also serve as the basis for reforms in other sectors of the criminal justice system. So, we then, about a year ago, in August, we filed the initiative that's now Amendment 3, and we started collecting signatures in October of 2021, so just almost exactly a year to the day. And, that was that signature collection effort was maybe the hardest I've ever been a part of because we were still dealing with the pandemic. We also had quite a bit of not great weather, and also there was a real increase in wages happening, the inflation, so it cost a lot more than it has ever cost to put something on the ballot this cycle. But we managed to get there, got it on the ballot, and so Amendment 3 will be on the ballot on November 8th. And really the core three things that Amendment 3 does: it legalizes the adult use of marijuana, so it does not legalize for people under the age of 21, but everyone over the age of 21 to be able to legally possess, use, cultivate their own personal amounts of marijuana. And then it will also automatically expunge nonviolent marijuana offenses with the exception of sales to minors and driving under the influence. And then finally, it will also bring a lot more economic opportunity, probably triple the market, double or triple the market that we currently have, and so it's going to boost revenues for the state, and those revenues will be dedicated to the funding the automatic expungements, and then after that, it will be equally divided between the public defender system in the state, which has been basically underfunded chronically. They did get it funded this last year, but every year before that, for about the past decade, it's been very underfunded. Then veterans health care, and finally drug abuse and addiction treatment services. So that's kind of the basic lay of the land. I feel like probably most people here are familiar enough with the amendment to know those top line things. So I'm happy to kind of open it up to questions I know Brennan started the questions. So.
Yeah, definitely. So one of the first questions that I wanted to ask was, what exactly? Just to clarify, because one thing too before I start with questions, I kind of also want to just make another statement just about politics in general. one of the things that I've seen and what I've felt, and that even has been present on me a lot in this election cycle, has been this kind of divisive, dualistic perspective of yes or no in politics, right? And with that, it's kind of turned into a team sport. You know, it's really passionate. A lot of people are taking this issue very personally. There are a lot of emotions involved with it. The statement I'd like to make to everybody here and to everybody that's listening is that in politics, you'll have people that are on the same side of the political aisle as their job vote against each other on issues every session. You know, the Democrats vote against Democrats, Republicans vote against Republicans, and they go out to have drinks afterward. They're still okay with each other socially. And so I really just kind of use that as a piece of encouragement to the cannabis culture in general, just to drop some of the animosity and some of the divisiveness that's being used whenever people don't see things the way that you see them, or they have a different position than you have. Because the people that are really writing the laws, they have to do this every day with each other. You know, and they vote things up and down, different levels of politics, both you know, locally. I'm the president of my neighborhood association, and every day people are having to make decisions that are about themselves or not. And so I just kind of wanted to leave that piece as a piece of encouragement, even as we continue to have communication from this point forward. So with that said, and I think it was really important for you to have a moment to talk a little bit about where you've come from with this, just as an opportunity for you to humanize yourself a little bit. Because in this situation, a lot of people get stripped of the humanity when they're out here taking the licks. And I appreciate you being able to stand here and let me hold your feet to the fire, ask you hard questions, knowing in confidence that that this is with good reason. So what exactly is your role with Amendment 3?
So I'm the campaign manager. Basically, I am in charge of, you know, I don't do every single thing, obviously, but I'm the one that kind of oversees every aspect of it. So the fundraising, communications, the field work, all that, you know, everyone ultimately reports to me.
How many people were responsible in the writing of Amendment 3?
I mean, dozens. I couldn't say exactly how many people, but you know, there was a fairly large number of folks that were involved. We had, I think, bi-weekly drafting calls that involved, you know, all the normal chapters in the state, the St. Louis City and St. Louis County ACP. Did get some input from the Missouri ACLU, and there were some folks from the industry that were involved.
Got it. Is there like a public list somewhere that someone can just see, like a directory of who put their hands on this language?
I don't think there's a public list, and there's well more than that that actually put their hands on it in some regard, because, you know, sometimes a technical question would come up and you'd say, well, this person from maybe another state or an attorney that has worked in this field might know that, and so, you know, you kind of get out to that level. There's probably 50 or 60 that had, and more than that, that, you know, would bring, you know, there were some people that would literally post on Facebook like, hey, I'm part of the drafting of this. What feedback do you have? And I know a lot of the normal chapters did, you know, solicitation of questions and input. So, you know, I wouldn't be able to specifically say where some ideas came from, but, you know, there was some like open sourcing of those like ideas.
Got it. But some of the language also has been influenced and inspired by other states.
Oh yeah, most definitely. I mean, there was a lot of things that we took bits and pieces of here and there. Kind of the overall structure of it is really this true of Article 14 in general, but is a lot like a lot of the marijuana law in Colorado. That was kind of the overarching structure of it. And then, you know, we took a fair amount of stuff from New York. They were the first state to pass any kind of automatic expungement. A lot of that idea came from them. And you know, there's a fair bit, a little bit from Oregon. So yeah, we borrowed and took things from other states.
Got it. Thanks. So we're going to jump right into expungement. One thing that I wanted to talk about with expungement is before I'm going to keep that out. I got a lot of questions I want to get to them. That was more philosophical. So referring to in section 2 specifically, the purpose, The amendment language specifies that part of the purpose is to remove the commercial production and distribution of marijuana from the illicit market, prevent revenue generated from commerce in marijuana from going from going to criminal enterprises. I'm going to read that one more time. Remove the commercial production and distribution of marijuana from the illicit market and prevent revenue generated from commerce in marijuana from going to criminal enterprises. I tried to look up a definition for what a criminal enterprise was under the language, but I didn't see anything.
Yeah, I mean, I will say also just the purposes section, it's not really a whole lot of, you're almost never going to have something that is actively enforced out of the purposes section. It's just kind of an overview of here's what the intentions are in this amendment.
So in the intention, it reads as to remove the commercial production and distribution of marijuana from the illicit market, and preventing commerce generated, well, however we define criminal enterprises, it's preventing commerce from going to the illicit market. How does the amendment plan to do this?
So by allowing it to be legally sold, that's and also, I think you're always competing with the illicit market if you're in the legal market. That's true whether you're talking about marijuana, alcohol, tobacco. I don't care what it is. And so one of the things that's really key in that is, we're going to have, I believe, the lowest tax rate on adult use marijuana sales in the country. And one of the reasons that we did that is because we know that if you tax it too highly, then it does drive people into the illicit market. And so, the general public does want good revenues to come off of this. But if you put, 25, 30% taxes on it, then people will absolutely go to the illicit market. And there's not really, all the enforcement in the world isn't going to stop that. It's just a fundamental fact to be balanced.
So I'm glad you brought that up. But to go back, so what I heard you say though is that basically, if I heard you right, you were basically if I'm paraphrasing, it says this, but we don't mean this. Is kind of what I heard, because it says prevent revenue generated from commerce and marijuana from going to criminal enterprises. This is, I think, something that should be focused on specifically because we're defining who's a criminal. And in expungement, we're also defining who's not a criminal
And who will not be a criminal after this. I mean, that is, the people will have criminal records removed.
Right. Unless they are part of what would be defined as a criminal enterprise, then they could still be at risk of a person, not that is in jail, but someone who is in the illicit market would still be at risk of being targeted as defined as a criminal enterprise.
I mean, are you saying someone is continuing to sell outside of the regulated market after the passage of Amendment 3? Is that the scenario you're describing? Yeah, that would still be a criminal act, and that's true of alcohol or tobacco as well. And frankly, anything. I mean, you can't sell anything. As a libertarian, I'm not a big fan of this, but you can't sell anything unless you pay taxes on it. Mm-hmm. That is the law in this country, and pretty much every country that has any sort of form of sales tax.
Got it. So is there similar language? I'm just curious if, prohibitionist language around alcohol or alcohol licensing language uses terminology like criminal enterprises when defining people that are like moonshine, like people that are, bootlegging alcohol at home. I'm curious if they're considered a criminal enterprise. Yeah.
I mean, they certainly would be. I mean, I don't know if the exact language of those statutes or what have you, but yeah, the ATF, that is still a major thing that they do. I mean, it's kind of surprising to people, but yeah, they still arrest like dozens. That's not a whole lot of people, but every year moonshine stills are broken up, particularly in like Kentucky and West Virginia.
It just seems like there's this interesting middle ground here where people are going to be freed for things that they've done in the past, where some of those things, if they were to go back and do them again, they would go right back to jail.
Yeah, I mean, it's the thing is that we're providing a legal opportunity for people to have that market and to So there is no longer a need for the illicit market, is the idea. Got it. Yeah. So you see where I'm at with this interesting lattice, though, this overlay of where people from the legacy market, because that's what I, just to give it a turn that's more respectful of those that have put their necks on the line, that have risked their lives, that have risked their families. Honestly, to build the culture that now that your amendment can build a business on, right? It's like without that illicit market, there would be no Amendment 3. And so there's this overlap where people are being criminalized still, but then they're also being given an option out of criminalization, but they just can't do it again. It's kind of how it feels. And I'm curious of how, I know that was kind of more of a statement, but I'm curious of, what your response is for that. Yeah, I mean, and maybe there's a disagreement on just the fundamental purposes of legalization here, but I've always thought the purpose is, all right, we're going to bring this above ground and put it into a legal regulated market. And look, I'm a person who ultimately favors a lot less regulation than we have in the society generally, but there is a lot of regulation on commerce across the board here. Look, this is maybe getting a little far afield, but the American Medical Association is essentially a private entity that gets to determine the supply of doctors in this country. Mm-hmm. I think that's crazy, but the general public supports that. Yeah, and I think it's something that we just have to recognize that there is where I'm at politically may not jive with where frankly like 95% of the rest of the population is, and there sometimes you have to make compromises and say this is a lot closer to my vision of what the world should be, even if it's not exactly it. I hear that. Yeah, thank you. And I think that it really, for me, I think that the concern for most folks is the difference between regulation and criminalization. And that how do we create regulations without criminalizing people? And how do we build regulations that encourage a structured market that don't give way for people to use the word of the law, regardless of the spirit of the law, to use it as its technical terms, to not then still bust a door down. And I kind of want to, I'll use that as a tether to the next thing. So in the some of the language, well, I'll get to that in a minute because I just want to stay on my list here. So we're going to stay on expungement. These are some questions that have also been pulled from Facebook. One of them was talking about the 20,000 person per year marijuana arrest number. The question was, what is that number based on? It's the UCR, Uniform Crime Reporting, which is, so all local police agencies report all their arrest data every year to the FBI, or at least they're supposed to. And so this is actually almost certainly an undercount because a lot of the local agencies don't always report it or report it incompletely. But you can go onto the UCR website and it'll show you all the data for all marijuana arrests. They don't have 2021 data up there yet, but if you go back to 2005 to it kind of escalates in the 90s. 2005 is where you really start hitting it over 20,000. There is a pretty substantial fall off in 2020, which this is not unique to Missouri or unique to marijuana. It was just a fall off in the number of arrests in the country, period, because of the pandemic. Basically, just there weren't people out; they were all at home, so there weren't as many arrests. But even if you exclude the 2020 data, I believe the number is 19,665 arrests per year on average from 2005 through 2020. If you do exclude the 2020 data as a weird outlier, then it's like 21,000. Got it. So back directly to expungement. Who gets out of jail and when? So anyone who is serving a misdemeanor, E, D, or C felony of up to 3 pounds, and they can petition for that immediately upon the passage or immediately upon the effective date. And how does the petitioning work? So the Public Defender's Office, which again we put money towards, will come up with forms that they will be responsible for helping people that are in jail fill those out. That is one thing that, if you're in the system, you actually do have access to a public defender by default. And so they will be able to utilize those resources to apply and process that with the system. And we did talk about just putting something in there that just said this happens automatically. And basically, what one of our attorneys, was former chief of staff for Governor Mel Carnahan, had said is like, look, the DOC, the Department of Corrections, will just be like, no, we're going to need a court order on each individual to tell us to let that person out. And so that's the process that we set up to satisfy that.
And one of the concerns that I've heard from public defenders is that the concern of time, how much time it could possibly take to actually clear up all of these records, that how they would possibly be able to fund enough people to cover these. Has there been any type of estimates on how long this would actually take? How many public defenders would be needed to cover them?
I don't know if they've specifically looked at that, but the Department of Corrections did put out the fiscal analysis that they sent to the state auditor, the number of prisoners that they're bringing in per year that would meet these qualifications, and it's not a huge number. It's 17 per year, and they serve an average of 1.1 years. That is people that have a marijuana only sentence, because there's often there's marijuana and then they also have other drugs. And that we literally cannot expunge those in a thing that is about marijuana, because we are confined to one subject by law when we file an initiative. So
I just want to make sure I heard you right, that there are only on average 17 people a year that would qualify for this type of funding.
There are only 17 people serving each year that are sentenced for marijuana only crimes.
Below 3 pounds?
No, period. Yeah, that are in prison that are each year that are just marijuana. That's the DOC's estimate.
I'm just letting the entire Facebook verse sit on that.
So there are a lot more people that are have unsupervised parole, or unsupervised probation, or are in county jails. But I'm talking about actual
specific
prison.
Yeah, in prison.
Yeah.
So is there a number on how many people are in prison or have sentences that are on parole that would qualify or that don't qualify because their charge was 3 pounds or more?
I don't know. The Department of Corrections declined to go into that because they said they would have to review all the cases, and that was more burdensome than they were willing to do on the initial fiscal analysis. And that's basically the only place that I would be able to get that data.
That sounds to me like this is going to be what we're going to see have a lot of work, because there are probably a lot of qualifiers in there, and that they don't want to dig through that. That's what it sounds like to me. Is that what it sounds like to you?
It's going to be work. And look, I don't think there's a way around that, because here's the thing. Once you get beyond the 35 grams, the law is not, possession of marijuana or trafficking of marijuana. It's, possession or trafficking of a controlled substance. And so there is not some statute in the criminal code that we could even reference and say, all the people convicted for this are the ones that are people. They are going to have to go through the court records and determine that. And they would have to do that regardless, because otherwise, you'd be like, well, we're going to let out all the people that have heroin sentences, fentanyl sentences. So I'm not necessarily opposed to that, but that's just, we can't, that's not possible.
Smooth, but throwing it out there. Now, is it fair to say that there are a lot of people that are going to stay in jail that won't have cannabis only offenses because of that 3 pound limit?
I don't know exactly, but I don't think the number will be large. And I think it is important to consider, two things. One, this is, I think we have to deal with the political reality of, if we push this too far, then this could fail. And I think that the repercussions of that are, it's not, oh, now the legislature is going to take this up and be engaged on it. That is going to be viewed as something that this is going to make it harder. I think it is easier to work on those cases if this passes. I mean, what we've seen in most states when something like this passes is then there is yet more, impetus to go in and work on the cases that were outside of the scope of that. Like in Illinois, they had a really, really bad expungement system out the gate. It basically, you had to apply for it. It only applied to misdemeanors, so literally like 30 grams, that was it. And then eventually they were like, this isn't working. And so Pritzker just was like, all right, fine, we're just making this all automatic. My office is ordering that, which is within the power of any governor. And they did. They processed like nearly 1 million expungements after that. And that I think has been a very good thing. But I think you have to get over that initial hurdle, and then that keeps the momentum moving forward.
Right, but other than us just kind of looking at that with hope, we don't really have, there's no like tangible path for that. We just can kind of hope for that, right?
I think there is a tangible path for it, because then it's, the same coalition of people that have been fighting for this continue. I mean, like, I'm not planning on stopping. That's not my, I have never thought like, oh, I get this done and then that's it. I mean, I'm dedicated to this. I know like all the people in the normal chapters, and frankly, a lot of people in the industry want to see this, continue this until there aren't any more people in prison for marijuana.
Right. So one of my, I think that one of my biggest concerns with the campaign has not been, and this would be any campaign, is just marketing or advertising something, presenting it in a way where it feels like it's more than it is. And I think that a lot of people are concerned about that in a lot of ways. I think that people are concerned about it with expungement. I think they're concerned about it with the micro licensing program. I'll talk about that in a minute. And I think that some of this kind of proves true to that. When we get down into some of the details of how many people this is actually hitting at once, we're not really hitting that many people.
Well, one thing I would push back on that, the people that would be eligible for expungement that are not currently in prison, I mean, that's literally hundreds of thousands of people. And again, it's hard to put an exact number on that, but if you go back to 1986, I believe, which is when the UCR data begins, and of course there are arrests before that, but that's just they weren't being reported to the FBI. I believe the number is about 480,000 total arrests.
So just to be clear, and I may have already asked this, but I have to ask again. Is there a timeline on how long it would take to get these people free? Or to get their records cleared?
So yes, on the expungement, so there's two separate provisions. There's the release from prison and from probation, parole, and then there is the actual expungement of records. And that timeline is for anyone who has a misdemeanor, that is the first 6 months. For any of the EDC felonies up to 3 pounds, that is within the year. And then for anyone who has a felony that is higher than that, it is upon the completion of the sentence. So if anyone has a felony from 20 years ago, that is also, basically more or less immediate within the year.
Got it. And for the sake of time, I'm just going to keep things rolling. Let's see here. So I asked this about 3 pounds, and I'm asking about people crossing state lines. So one of the things that's in the measure is that it says that if you were ticketed while under the influence, right, or crossing state lines, are two of the other the exceptions that you would not qualify for expungement, correct?
Yeah.
So that means, is that accurate to say that if someone was, say, driving from Kansas City to Kansas City, Kansas, or from driving from St. Louis to East St. Louis, or from East St. Louis to St. Louis,
if
they
it
got
was,
a ticket?
if it was a material point of the case, and here's the thing, that is also that's because it involves federal jurisdiction once you get into that. And so, one of the things that the federal government has said is, okay, you can have these programs within the states, but you have a mandate to try to keep it contained within the state. But I will also say this, pretty much when there is a material point that is about crossing state lines,
It's not a federal case.
those cases generally go back better. And so there is literally, that's just, we can't do anything. Like we direct in Missouri through our system cannot do anything about that. That has to be done at the federal level.
More about expungement. Let's see. One of the questions from online was, how would convictions be evaluated if the marijuana crime was listed alongside other crimes? Would marijuana crimes, and I'm just going to kind of layer these, would marijuana crimes categorized under unclear terminology such as controlled substance be eligible under an automatic expungement?
Yes, but the court will have to go in and actually dig up the records of the case to figure that out. And again, I don't think there's anything we could have written in the law to make that otherwise, because that is just the way the statute is written. Is it does not specify marijuana. It just says controlled substance. So we have to basically say, all right, the ones that are about marijuana, and the courts have come out. They've also sent in their fiscal analysis, and they say it's going to cost about $7 million to do this. And I think that's probably pretty reasonable.
So specifically, to be clear, what government entity is going to be responsible for evaluating the records?
The circuit courts of the state.
The circuit courts of the state,
Yes.
are going to be responsible for evaluating the records for those that will qualify for expungement.
They will be, responsible for processing. And I think that's pretty much, they would have to be the ones to do it. They are the repository of all the criminal records in the state.
Got it. Let's see. Is there a limited time for which they can petition for this relief?
No, I don't believe so.
Sure on that?
I'm pretty sure. That was,
I didn't see it, but it was one of the questions that was asked online. I'm just asking because people are going to be fact checking you.
yeah. I don't see a time limit in here.
Okay. Sweet. And then, is there an appeals process available if people are denied for good cause by the courts?
Yeah, I mean, it is not specifically spelled out, but anything can be, any ruling of any court can be appealed up the chain. Through, you get denied by the circuit court, you can appeal that up to the appeals court.
I think the question that they're asking is the amendment designing some sort of reservoir to catch people that push and get pushed back?
So again, it's not specified in the amendment that any court ruling, that's just, if a circuit court says this, then you can always appeal it to the next, to the appeals court.
Got it. We're going to keep talking about legal stuff, and we're going to go back into possession. So let's see. The language doesn't permit or protect the use of marijuana, public use of marijuana, and there are limitations that are set forth. Can you explain how people could be incriminated while using the plant and to what degree?
So, the way we treat public use is essentially that the default is that it's prohibited, but local governments can make that otherwise. So they have the ability to allow it, frankly, they could allow it everywhere, or they could designate certain areas, such as a consumption lounge, something like that, or pretty much anywhere. They have that ability. But so there is no specific thing that the amendment says that this sort of behavior incriminates you. And in fact, if the only way that an officer would have the ability to execute a search or something would be that they would have to have specific evidence that you're in excess of what the amendment allows.
That's actually one of my questions that I wanted to talk about is how did they define that? Who's determining when they say, I suspect this person has more than they are supposed to have?
Yeah, I think it would be very, very difficult for them to make a probable cause out of that because, frankly, most of the time, the way that cannabis arrests happen are they say that you smell like cannabis. That's the easiest thing, and it's almost unrebuttable because a smell that's just very inspecific. But they would not be able to use that as grounds for probable cause for a warrant.
What if you were driving?
So if you were actively driving, that is the one exception, yes. Because that would still implicate potentially driving under the influence.
And then, okay, so one of the most dangerous places for a black person to get arrested is in a traffic stop. And a lot of times, probable cause is what's used to escalate situations. If a person that has already been targeted by not only the war on drugs, but also just by policing in general, is pulled over and the cop smells cannabis on them, they can use that as probable cause to investigate.
So yes, but here's the thing. I mean, here would be what I would say. Look, driving under the influence is a real, that is something that is dangerous to other people. There has to be some limitation on that. I think we limit how that can be enforced. We say we can't say, oh, you have, a certain number of nanograms of THC in your bloodstream per milliliter, which is what some states do, and I think that's a really bad idea. It's not backed up by any science. But nonetheless, there is a public interest in making sure that people are not impaired on any substance while driving. So, I think we have to have some allowance for that. But I see your point. And I think it does get at, there are things that are deeper and more systemic than what this can fix, but do need to be addressed. And so, I think there needs to be kind of a major overhaul in how policing is handled, generally speaking. And there's a whole bunch of things I could go into about that, that literally would be here for hours. But I think that the problem you highlight is real. I don't know that we can solve it simply by legalizing marijuana in any, like, just that. I don't think there is a simple solution to that on just that single policy.
But what if we didn't have limits? What if limits weren't, if the officer didn't have the cause to be like, oh, well, that smells like a lot of cannabis. It smells like you might have more than you're supposed to have.
So it's only an issue if you're actively driving, and it's not about how much you have at that point. It's about whether you are actively under the influence. That's really the question. It's not, what the amount that you have. You could have none, but if you have an active smell of it, then, it's the same thing that's true of alcohol. If they come up to the car and say, well, this breath smells like alcohol, then that does give them probable cause to attempt to give you a breathalyzer. You can refuse it, of course, but then they impound your car. That is, again, there are a lot of things that we could do better on how all these things are enforced, but I do think there is some reasonable enforcement for how people are driving on the highways.
So back to driving, away from the road and back on the street, we can still, though, be not just ticketed, but if we have more than double the legal limit, we can be arrested, right?
Well, so that is something the amendment is just silent. That's statute. That could be changed by the legislature at any time, but that's just, there's only so far that the amendment goes. So there is no specific provision that says, if you go beyond that limit, that it's just, where the amendment is silent, current statute kicks back in.
Got it. So I guess the part where the two things that that seem to match up though is a lot of the language that talks about dismantling the existing criminal enterprises of the illicit market, and also keeping criminal regulations on the planet. Seems like it doesn't just seem like it appears to be a strategic militant approach to keep a stronghold on the market by making sure that there aren't legacy growers.
Look, if I will say this, if it were just totally up to our coalition, I don't think anyone would have supported a possession limit, period. That is a nod to the reality that every single other state has a possession limit. Ours would be tied for second highest in the country. And if there was not a federal prohibition, I don't think there would be any need for it, period. But because of the fact that there is still a federal prohibition, that the feds have basically said, you have to control the flow of it out of the state. It can't cross state lines. Then that has been one of the ways that has been regulated.
So back to the home. We're off the street and we're at the home. I can still, with a warrant, they can still knock on my door, but then knock it down, right?
So they would have to knock and announce. I'm here. Yeah. So I would, if it were strictly up to me, there would be a lot of changes to how the police operate in general in terms of these sorts of
So
things.
the reason I bring this up is just kind of like some of the semantics around no knock rates. All right. I just kind of wanted to kind of clarify what that means, right? Because as long as they knock, they can still bust your door open.
I mean, that is a problem in general for how we enforce all sorts of things. And you know, the militarization of the police has been an absolute disaster in this country. And this is not, I will also preface this with, I am now not speaking as because this goes beyond the amendment, but this is just my personal feeling. I've written about it quite a bit.
Right, and I think that that's part of the thing is, you know, what might, even if not the intended accusation, but what might be the effects of this amendment that actually might exacerbate some of these other systems.
So I doubt that would happen. And you know, one of the things we also do is we say, look, if the police are executing any kind of warrant for anything related to marijuana, they have to report what they thought they were going to find, what they actually did find, you know, and explain their reasoning, and it all has to go into a report to the attorney.
But they can report that they found nothing.
I mean, but then there is a lot of the problem with, there is no accountability right now in a lot of the search warrants that are executed because the public has no way of knowing, oh, well, the police said in 100% of cases, they said they were going to find this, and they only found it in 30% of cases. And when there have been reporting systems that require that sort of information starts coming out. And, you know, it is not in and of itself a fix to that problem. But providing that information, I think, does give us the means to address that problem more thoroughly down the road. But you know, part of the issue is we just don't, because the police records are often very hard to find. They're broken up in jurisdiction. There is not a good way to get your head around the actual facts of the situation. And so we're trying to provide something that allows that. And I would hope that it becomes something that can be used in search warrants being executed more generally. Because a lot of these things are done with way too much force,
right?
For no good reason,
right? Well, you know, and the thing that I appreciate, there are a lot of things that I appreciate about your personal perspective. But let's be real, like as much as you see some of the things that you see and that you like or hope that they would be that way, we're still left to the word of the law, and we're still left to the structure of what the word says. Even though the spirit of the law says we're moving in the right direction and we're trying to keep a good pace with this, the word of the law still leaves us with potential dangers and threats if we don't follow these regulations that the amendment is putting in the Constitution.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not here to say that this is the be-all, end-all, that it solves all the problems. I think it solves the vast majority of problems related to this particular subject.
Yeah.
But then you have big thorny problems that are tangential but tie into the subject, and that, you know, we may not be able to address all of those or even sometimes at all in this. And I acknowledge that I think there are still things that would need to be worked on the subject of marijuana after this is passed.
So on a lighter note, taking the pressure off a little bit, I want to talk about something that I like. And that because we're sitting in consumption lounge, and I took a lot of risks, obviously, and had to, you know, I talked to you before I even started this whole thing. And my understanding of the legal language gave me a confidence to do so. But from what I'm understanding with this language is that the Amendment 3 is giving power to cities to basically regulate how they allow public consumption.
Yes.
And then if the local municipality gives regulation to support public consumption, what is there to protect entities from being harassed by the state at that point, if they're in a municipality that is gone fully green?
I mean, I don't think the state would have any grounds to, because the amendment gives that power to the municipalities.
Does it protect those? Because I think one of the concerns that's been had about city versus state politics is one of the same things that people say about state versus federal politics. It's like, at what level does the lower level of politics get to stop? You know, where do the flies in the face of the next level of politics stop?
Yeah. So, you know, the thing is that the amendment explicitly gives that power to local governments. So, you know, a state actor could not, if you're in compliance with the city or county, what have you, could not come in. I mean, they could, they'd be breaking the law. And, you know, sometimes people describe scenarios to me and I'm like, well, yeah, that could happen if they literally broke the law.
Right.
That is, you know, when someone kind of pulls let's say a January 6th that just tries to like totally go beyond the law. Well, you know, there's just that is a problem that you can't solve with law. That is, you know, I don't think we have that a ton of the time, but there are people that do that. But, that is something that when writing a law, you just can't solve directly.
So I'm going to go into, because we still got a lot to cover here. I want to make sure that we get to it all, and I want to get to our some folks in the room too. So I'm going to pick up the pace a little bit, and I'm going to get a little less just conversational about the answers, and unless we really need to elaborate on it. Okay, fair. Sure. Cool. So we're going to talk about micro businesses.
Right.
And so there are two license types, if I understand this right. There are micro business wholesale licenses, and dispensary licenses. Is that right?
Yes.
And when I was reading the laws, it seems like the only permission that's given to the wholesale cultivator that's not given to the dispensary is actually to grow. Is that right?
Yeah, I believe that's right.
Yeah.
Well, to manufacture.
Well, when I was reading it, the way I was reading it, it read as if dispensaries have the ability to manufacture.
I believe they have the ability to create pre-rolls, which every licensed entity that, from cultivators, manufacturers, and dispensaries have that ability under the amendment. There was a big discussion over how that should happen in the rules with the medical marijuana, and the department basically gave it to the manufacturers, but there's no reason why every entity shouldn't have that ability.
Right. And then, okay, so let's see. So let's talk about qualifications. Or maybe let's first summarize what micro businesses are. We should do that. So I'll summarize and you tell me if it sounds right.
Okay.
So micro business licenses are a program. Actually, I'm going to let you do it because I need to take a drink of water.
Sure. So it's a minimum of 144 licenses that are targeted largely towards groups that are have been disproportionately impacted by the prohibition on marijuana. And they would be able to, the wholesalers would be able to cultivate, manufacture, the dispensaries would be able to sell directly to patients, and the cultivators can grow up to 250 flowering plants at any given time. That's the basic overview there.
Got it. So qualifications for this. You said primarily is targeting, what is it that you said is primarily targeting who?
Communities that have been harmed by prohibition of marijuana.
Got it. Okay, so some of the qualifications are, one of them is that you must reside in a zip code with certain specifications, right? And those zip code specifications fall in, I think, two different categories. One is school category. So for zip codes, it has to be a zip code that has been a certain percentage under the poverty line socioeconomically on average for 3 out of the last 5 years. Are you bet that there? 3 of the last 5 years?
Yeah, that's correct.
And it's I think it's 200% under the poverty or the average.
Yeah, I believe it's 250% of the poverty line.
Okay, so part of this is that the person just has to live there, though, right?
Yes.
So when we're talking about places like St. Louis or Kansas City, where gentrification is on the rise, and you have white, rich professionals that are moving into affluently minority under the poverty line neighborhoods and are both buying up property, residing, and starting businesses. If I was a rich white guy that just moved to Cherokee Street and I've been here for at least 3 years, I could qualify for this, right?
I believe 63118 would qualify. Yeah.
We have a lot of rich white guys in 63118.
I don't dispute that. Here's the thing. There's a tension between, how tightly do we draw the qualifications and basically risk almost no one being able to apply, and then how broadly and make it almost open to anybody. I'm not here to say this is perfection, but it is something that, our coalition talked about quite a lot and, wanted to, I think we drew it relatively broadly. But I think that it is still going to be very helpful to people that are have been harmed by the law. I mean, the very first one, or at least one of the main ones, is if you have yourself been convicted of an offense that is now expunged, or if you're a direct, family member or dependent upon someone who had one of those offenses. And so, that basically, the people that have had the most direct impact on them would qualify.
Right, and those individuals are also being pooled with disabled veterans and with those that have been in, that have lived in qualifying zip codes, right? I think one of the other parameters that's in there, I know, is that it talks about living in or graduating from a school that is unaccredited within the last 5 years. But we were doing some digging and we saw that there have actually been no schools that were unaccredited in the last 5 years in Missouri.
So hold on, I don't believe it's, let's see. Graduated from a school district that was unaccredited or had a similar successor designation at the time of graduation. So if you graduated from a school district that was unaccredited at that time, then you would qualify.
Got it. So the last school that was unaccredited was over 8 years ago. And there were only 2 in Missouri at that point.
So there was a period of time where the entire city of St. Louis, the school district was unaccredited.
And just to be clear, there's no year limit on how far back that goes. There's no restriction. So if you were unaccredited in 1998 when you graduated, then you would qualify.
If the school district, when you were there, was unaccredited, yes.
So another thing on micro licenses is just make sure I get this right. So why is it that, and I want to preface this by saying that both of these groups deserve focus, but why is it that that minorities, or excuse me, those that have been affected by the war on drugs, because I'm mixed up right now. I want to land this. So I just want to be clear that for people that have been not for people of color that have not been affected by the war on drugs, but that have been at the receiving end of corporate racism, that have been at the receiving end of adversities culturally, being a Black or brown person. Maybe they were targeted but weren't arrested. Maybe they've had to struggle to get to the point where they were in their own professionalism. If they aren't living in a zip code that qualifies or went to a school that qualifies, if you are just a person of color, there are not any provisions here to actually help you. Is that right?
There are no specifically race-based qualifications.
Got it.
And I mean, we did discuss that. One of the things, so when you file an initiative, the Attorney General's office gets to make a determination about what's called facial constitutionality. So if they think that there is something unconstitutional in it, they can just say, you're not allowed to file this. And you can appeal it, you can take it to the courts. But we kind of felt like Eric Schmidt would do that on something that is specifically a race-based.
Race-based.
Yes.
Understood. So on that, I also, well, I'll just ask it like this. Why are we all being pulled together? Those of us that may qualify based on the parameters of socioeconomic status and also veterans. Why is this all in one cluster? And there are separate taxes that are being developed for the veteran programs. There seems to be a lot of isolated focus on veterans to make sure that they're having what they need, which is awesome. But I think that part of the concern is that this micro business program, and we'll talk about how many licenses in a minute, but that we have a lot of different subgroups that are now competing for this already smaller license group. And so a lot of people are asking why we're kind of being corralled that way. One of the quotes was, why are we all being segregated from the rest of the market?
So in terms of being able to buy and sell from the larger licenses?
I guess that's probably part of it.
Yeah.
I think that part of it probably has to do with I would assume that part, not assume, but I know that part of it is also just that due to need to be ambiguous. People that have actually been affected by the war on drugs the most, Black and brown people, Black and Latino and indigenous people, feel many times like this is not, that there isn't a direct focus on that cultural need. And I know that you have some answers for that. Part of that I know is that the amendment has actually built in the need for a chief equity officer, and that chief equity officer is supposed to be hired within the first 60 days of this going into effect, this language going into effect. I could see that as being a good thing. I see that also in the language it says that the chief equity officer basically will be creating the standards that they'll be holding. So that was more of a statement. I just wanted to acknowledge that I see that there is a piece in there where even though we're all being clustered together, that there is something that's being focused on to say, okay, there is still a need to focus on specifically the groups that have been most affected by the war on drugs. And we should have people that are out here looking at these entities and seeing what they're doing about it. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, it's meant to be someone that is holding people accountable within the system to make sure that it achieves the goals of helping the groups that are able to apply and hold micro licenses.
Okay. So cool. I slowed down again, but I got to speed up. So another question is that dispensaries can package, process, these micro dispensaries can process. I'm pretty sure it says process. We need to go back to this. Okay, package, process, and store offsite. What does offsite storage mean?
So basically, there's places that I don't know if they store off-site currently, but there are a warehouse or something like that where you could store the marijuana, and it would be you'd have to have it regulated through the department, but it would that is allowed. And there's been kind of an issue, and this is very in the weeds, but transporters right now have to deliver everything they have within 24 hours. And so it's kind of made it a logistical problem in the industry that is kind of driving up costs because people, the transporter has to go all the way across the state, blah, blah, blah. And so as opposed to letting them store product places so that they don't have to, make a trip across the entire state for a small amount.
But I couldn't just buy a pod and store my weed in it.
In that storage facility, right? As a consumer,
But buy a pod. No, I'm talking about the micro business, micro license.
it would have to be secure. But
Right.
yeah, I mean, as long as it meets the security standards, yes.
Okay, so why can micro businesses only do business with other micro licenses?
So I think the advantage of it is that it helps the cultivators because they are then definitely going to have the shelf space. Is what we've seen, anyone that is coming late into the market, because the market's already out there, that is just a fact. And if you're, the cultivators that are coming online right now, and manufacturers, they're finding it very difficult to break into the market because of the fact that there's already, people have already kind of set up what brands they have, the patients know what makes the product.
So you're saying that this is designed to make sure that they have space in the market. It's to, because for a lot of people it seems to read the opposite. They feel like with the micro license program, this is actually restricting them because they're not going to be able to work with, say, cookies or maybe Modern Cannabis or any other brand that they might be enthusiastic about that's sitting on the other side of these burning sands now. I think that's often how it reads, is that there are going to be more opportunities lost than opportunities gained.
So, I can understand that perspective, but what we've seen in a lot of other markets that have done this so far is that the dispensaries do just fine because you can kind of there's almost always a good location to put a new dispensary, and dispensaries get to compete on location. That's kind of one of their primary methods of competition. But the cultivators, if they're coming to the market late, then they're finding it very difficult to make any sales because they're already, the dispensaries that are out there already have decided, here's the products we want to sell. There's already dominant brands, and so this is saying, look, these dispensaries, will carry the products of the micro cultivators, and they have to. And so that is something that gives them a guaranteed market, a guaranteed outlet for their products.
So why can, if I apply, why can I only have one?
So, I mean, mainly because it's designed for people that are, trying to break into the market, may not have a lot of capital, may not be able to stand up a very large operation.
So the social equity measures are in place. Basically, it just reads that I only am getting help if I'm poor or struggling. But if I'm just an innovative minority that's trying to get into the industry, I haven't been arrested. Where's the motivation for, like, basically I've known one of the biggest pieces that the cannabis culture wants, people that may be on the fence about this or that are even voting no, is that they feel like it's leaving them out. They feel like there's not a bridge being built for them to like find their way in, where is it that allows for us? Okay, I'm going to rephrase this. I went to the coffee shop. I go to a micro roaster. You see me there. Some coffee. All right. So I was telling Scott about the law. And one of the things that I told him is, I said, one of my concerns is that we can't be vertical as a micro license. And he said, and he immediately knew what I meant. He said, wait, so you can't roast your coffee and then bag it and then sell it over the counter? He said, I barely make money and I can do all these steps. How are you expected to make money? And so I think that that's part of the concern, is not that we're not going to have access, but it's that we're going to be put, if we qualify for these licenses, which I would, that we would be put in a position that we would be restricted more than we would be assisted. It's like, and that without being able to be vertical, there's concern about how we would actually stay revenue positive and compete with brands that are out here that are figuring out how to do decent flower at a higher commodity level at a more commodity price.
Yeah, I mean, I take your point there, but here's the thing. If you're not able to actually, so, the people that are vertical in the market definitely have an advantage, but that takes a lot of money to be able to actually put up a vertical operation. And so one of the things that we do here is that we allow people to kind of step up into the complex license.
Well, it's $1,500, right?
For the application for
Yeah.
micro license.
So if I had $3,000, I can apply for 2 licenses, right?
Mhm.
Well, I mean, theoretically, if I was allowed to. And I'm just, when we're talking, and this is where it starts to kind of feel insulting, because it's not that much money. 2 licenses, to get 2 licenses, to be able to acquire both sides of it, to say, oh, well, it feels like it's saying, well, you're not responsible or able, you don't have the means and you couldn't be trusted. This probably wouldn't be good for you if you had the whole thing. So we're going to parcel it out in pieces for you so you don't mess it up.
Well, there's also a question of how many people are able to hold the licenses. And so if, we did want to prevent people from getting a whole bunch of them and trying to spread that out a little bit.
But isn't that done by the restriction on how they're being released? Because there are only 6 being released per congressional district, 4 that are going to be cultivation, 2 that are going to be dispensaries, and that's within the first 300 and something days.
Yeah, that's the first wave.
And then the next one doesn't have to come for another like 570 days or something.
It was 270.
That's the last one. The last round is 270. The middle round is over 500 days.
I think that's incorrect, but we can.
We're not here to debate. But the question is, where is it? Like, it seems like that restriction is already put in place. Isn't it already being restricted by how many licenses are being put out at once?
So, I mean, no, I don't think so, because if you have a situation where that was unrestricted, then you could have somebody that won, 5, 10 of them, and that's, a substantial chunk of that market.
But why not 2? Like, why can't I have cultivation? Like, why can't I be vertical?
Yeah, I mean, maybe that was we could have drafted it that way. I'm not, again, I'm not here to say that this is the absolute be all end all. But, I think it's a reasonable way of trying to spread out the number of licenses that are held by different individuals and groups.
And I guess the biggest thing with this is that, a lot of this is experimental. We don't have many models to base this off of. So a lot of this is that we're supposed to have a lot of blind faith in this amendment to do this and for it to actually benefit us. We have a couple social equity platforms that have been pretty heavy hitters around the country. And I think that one of the things that gets said about this law or about our initiative here in Missouri, this one, is that it is one of the most comprehensive. I agree with that, but is it fair to say that as far as social equity provisions that we are not the strongest?
I think it's a pretty strong social equity program.
But we don't, sorry.
Yeah.
Continue.
Yeah. The kind of states that were around when we were drafting this, New York had not yet completed their law when we were kind of doing most of this. And so we were really looking at Illinois law. So I don't think Illinois has a great program. But that was one of the things that we had to look at. This is
why is it then that the campaign doesn't even use the words social equity? It's not on the language. It's not anywhere on the website. It's not anywhere in the state language.
I have certainly used the term, but it may not be in the actual the top 3 things that we say. That is,
I can't find it anywhere on the website. I've looked through it a handful of times. Anybody can fact check me after this. But the main thing that is that there are a lot of things, again, that have been presented in the spirit of the law. You can say that you feel that way, and that's great, but that's not the way it's written. Social equity, actually, I don't see it being, I haven't seen it in any social media posts. I haven't seen it in any Instagram posts. It just hasn't been a buzzword that's been used. Why is that?
So, I would bet there is at least somewhere in the Facebook or Instagram world that is out there. But, I think that the actual impact of the law will have a lot of social equity in it, regardless of, terminology that's being used.
Got it. So I think you might have already answered this in a way. But I talked a little bit about the licensing. And you were right, the middle group is 275. The last group is 548 days. So the spanning of the micro licenses is 300 days for the first round, 275 days for the second round, and 548 days for the third round. And we're talking about 6 licenses per congressional district. So that means that there are how many? 9? How many? 8 congressional districts. And so we're talking about how many licenses at one time? 8 times
48.
48 licenses at a time. So 48 licenses will be awarded within that first 300 days. But why are they being spaced out like that?
So the idea is that is going to give them some opportunity to get set up and get built out, and then start the process before there's more competition that comes out. And also the market will continue to build over time. What we've kind of seen in these markets is, the first year you have maybe 1.5 to 2 times what the medical program was. By year 2, year 3, then you're looking at triple or maybe even more than that the size of the market.
And I guess if the initiative does if it's intended, then it would be, well, okay. So I got to keep it. What qualifications, back to qualifications, what qualifications exactly, or what qualifies as historically disadvantaged populations?
So I don't know if that is specifically, which section are they, or which specific provision are they looking at?
Doesn't say, we'll skip it now for time.
Okay.
Because it's not, we've got some other juice to get to.
But I mean, if people want to look at the exact qualifications and read through all of them, it is on page 26, starting with A there.
Got it. So other micro-license cultivation centers are capped at having, or micro-license cultivation centers, this is a question from Facebook. Micro-license cultivation centers are capped at having 250 flowering plants at any given time. found in definitions, why is this unduly burdensome regulation included? It's partially opinion and unduly burdensome, but that's the way they feel. That's a perception. What's your answer?
Yeah, so I mean, on the existing medical licenses, a lot of times the departments actually force people to basically build out maximum capacity. And so if that something like that were to happen on the micro licenses, and they had huge canopies, that could cost 10-15 million dollars. And this is a difficult market to get financing in. It's probably going to become more difficult as interest rates are rising. You can't go to a bank. So I mean, it was something that was meant to make sure that it is upscale that for people that may not have $10 million in cash to be able to do that.
Got it. Moving on to comprehensive licenses. We're going to go through some comprehensive licenses, and then we're going to take a break, and then we're going to come back and we're going to do some in-person questions. Comprehensive licenses. I've read quotes from license holders historically and recently stating that there's not that much money being made, or not as much money being made as it appears, and that they're banking on adult use legalization to ensure their survival. STL Today just released an article. STL Today just released an article yesterday covering this topic. Is it accurate that medical license holders are not making enough profit right now? And is this adult use initiative being pushed partly to remedy the shortfalls of the medical market?
I mean, I don't think there's any secret that the people that have medical marijuana licenses or are interested in expanding the market in some way want to see the ability of more people to be able to sell, to purchase their products. I mean, that's not that is very straightforward. Certainly, that's the case.
Well, I think that what's being said is underneath the existing medical climate, in the existing climate, they're not bringing enough money to get out of the red. And so many of them are grappling into Amendment 3 as a buoy, as a saving grace to keep them from going under.
I mean, it is a fact in just the marijuana industry in general. It is not that easy to make profit. The biggest thing is, and frankly, I think this is something that is often not discussed as kind of a social equity thing, but it should be, frankly. 280E makes it very, very difficult for anyone to make a profit because of the fact that you can't deduct your regular business expenses. And so that kind of advantages the groups that have the most money, that can sit on, can build out a big infrastructure and kind of wait until hopefully federal legalization happens.
So is it fair though to weigh some of the success of Amendment 2 partly based on the success of license holders right now?
No, I mean, I don't think it really matters from the point of view of what we did Amendment 2 for business owners, but business. That is not our problem really. But as long as there is a market that is serving the patients, that was the function there. And so it's a tough market, and people may go. I mean, I know several that have gone out already in this market, and that's the breaks.
So I want to be clear, just to as far as comprehensive licenses, Amendment 3 has no social equity components for comprehensive licenses. Is that correct?
So it does, because the half of any new comprehensive licenses would have to be awarded to people that successfully operate a micro license.
In the first round of licenses, there are no social equity provisions that are being put in place, correct?
That's it.
And so if there are none in this round, I'm just going to keep moving. What does the initiative do to get more minorities in ownership of comprehensive licenses? Why is it suggested but not required or incentivized? I read an entire paragraph in there that basically says, like, go get out there and talk to your staff and your company about why social equity, I'm paraphrasing because they don't say social equity, but about why disadvantaged populations that have specifically been targeted by the war on drugs, why it matters to include them in the fold of the business. But it says we're not requiring you to, but there is also no incentive. So why is it that it's put in there? Because basically it reads to me as if it was said just to say, and if there's nothing else to it. Like, oh, we said it, so we check the box. That's how it reads.
So, it is something that is meant to encourage companies if they're, I believe it's as part of conversion to comprehensive licenses, right? That they are, they're not required, but they are encouraged to give a plan for, creating diversity and, making sure that there's inclusion.
But there's no incentive or anything. There's no like reward. They don't even get like there's nothing that says like we have, like why isn't there something going on with the DEI, with the diversity officer, and with this transition here to actually make impact as these licenses are conferred?
Yeah, I think there was some discussion about like, would we actually be able to force that onto the businesses, or could we just encourage it?
Well, I mean, didn't New Jersey literally like give up half of their licenses, or New York half of their licenses to social equity applicants? Like, they just said it. We're not going to give these to anyone else.
Yeah, so the new licenses, the existing licenses are converting their life, into.
I guess my point is like you can say it because you're writing it, right? It's like you can put it in there. It's just a matter of whether you feel like it be supported to be voted on, right?
So what we can tell a private business to do, there's plenty of things that we can tell them to do, but I don't know that we can automatically say you have to implement this kind of like human resources plan.
Understood. All right, so there are, let's see. There are plenty of Black and brown professionals that are interested in the cannabis industry, but experience adversity at the hands of the corporate racism. I already kind of said this, like in every other industry. We only get help as minorities if we're poor or have been arrested. Additionally, there are veterans that would also like a shot at having comprehensive licenses. Why aren't we being offered opportunities to get comprehensive licenses in the first round?
So, in the original round, that is going to be just the existing medical marijuana operators. And that's, those are the people that have businesses that are already able to basically turn over and start selling adult use marijuana. And then all the new licenses are targeted towards, the people who qualify for micro.
How likely is it that we will actually get new licenses issued?
For new comprehensive licenses, I can't guarantee things, but, I would say it's almost a certainty, because here's the thing. The department has continued to issue new medical marijuana licenses. And so if they issue more of them after this passes, then they have to issue some of them 50%.
So DHSS is actively onboarding new medical marijuana licenses.
I mean, it's not like at a huge rate, but yes, it's basically coming out of the pool of peers. But yeah, they add, I don't know.
So these aren't new applicants. These are people that submitted and are appealing, have paid a lot more money and fought in court.
Not necessarily in court, but yeah,
Okay.
they have appealed, and they've either settled or won in a few instances, but mostly settlements. But that would still mean that they continue to do that. There's still a pool of them out there, and they have to give half the new licenses to people that qualify for micro businesses.
So the department can issue emergency rules for a plan including social equity, right?
Yeah, I would think the department would have that capability. The department has pretty broad latitude under the rulemaking authority to do quite a few things.
So that's the one thing that I see, is that the department has flexibility to change this how they would need to, and that's actually one of the things that people like Dan Dietz have said to me before, that once this has gone through, that we can go back and fix it for the things that we want. And I have mixed feelings about that statement and about that perspective. I don't really feel like it's my job as a minority to have to go back and fix the things that I think that are going to help me in an industry that's already trying to build itself culturally on my back. But the bigger issue is, not the issue, but the bigger question is, how realistic is it for there to be emergency provisions issued? Like, has that already happened?
So they will have to issue emergency rules, basically after the passage of this, to comply with the timelines in there, because the traditional rulemaking process takes, take up to like 6-9 months. If you remember back in 2019 when they did the medical rules, they started that in December and they issued the first ones in, I think, June. And then they kind of continued it probably took another month or so. And that's how long. And actually, I think those still had not fully gone through. I think those were still emergency rules, even under that time.
Got it. So with comprehensive licenses, right now it says, in the language, it says that any entity can apply for a comprehensive license. Does this mean the department will be accepting paid applications for comprehensive licenses from anyone before they could be accepted? Given that license holders will get access to all of the first round. If people start paying and applying right now,
So
maybe once this passes.
maybe in theory they could, but the department would have the discretion as to when that application window would open up.
Got it. And will the campaign be making? Will the campaign be advertising that licenses are open or applications will be open or anything like that? Will they be putting that public that you could apply right now if you wanted to?
So no, I mean, as the campaign, that would not be something that we would do.
Okay, we may have lost our feed. Looks like we lost our feed. She was on her cell phone doing that for us. But I think we got as much of it as we could this evening. Thank you guys for tuning in. The website that they have it streaming on is www.p2pmo.com. I don't know any login, anything. This is what was on the poster. And the poster also said it was lasting an hour. So, but I don't see that she's probably going to come back because her phone probably did die. I was wondering how we were going to take a break and come back too. So, but thank you for joining us. This is a really important topic. A lot of you made a lot of really good points. And yeah, I wish we could do the whole thing. We slated an hour for this. We went almost 2. So yeah, hopefully you can log in www.p2pmo.com. That's P, the number 2, pmo.com. So yeah. I thought a lot of you made a lot of really good points. Yeah, I was yelling for you guys. I was screaming for you guys. But anyway, so let me bring you in. So we're together. We've had the longest. Oh, you're still muted. Hold on. Unmute. Oh, nope. You have to unmute yourself. Oh, she froze. Anyway, you're unfrozen now. It was an interesting one, and I enjoyed the commentary, and I wish we could bring you the rest of it. But unfortunately, like I said, it's a situation where her phone probably died, and we want to shout out Marion Kuhn for being there, for live streaming, for letting her phone die for us, for the sake of the cause. Yeah, I know. So that's okay. Don't worry. Thank you so much to also Dawn Abernathy. There are some questions in the comments that I think would be really relevant to ask. And I really do hope that they get asked, that there's time to ask those questions. But as far as I could see, there was a lot of stumbling and making excuses for some really, y'all could do better, Missouri. Y'all could do better.
Yeah, when if you really want to cherry pick laws and what other states are doing and how
yeah,
not so progressive, y'all.
Anyway. We love you guys.
Thank
you for tuning in this evening for our second session. I'll get all of these up by tomorrow. I'll have the debate up by tomorrow on our Spotify, our Apple iTunes, and our Google Podcast. And I will also have both shows from today in the thing. Hey, so if you guys have a question that you want asked, if you could real quick tag Dawn Abernathy, are you friends with her? Or reply to this comment, says I need you to tag me if you still want to ask the question. So I'm going to stay on for just a few more minutes. If you guys are still here and you want to tag Dawn and get a question asked this evening, do it. Do it to it. You got like 5 minutes. You got 5 minutes, and then we're gonna hit the 2-hour mark. We're gonna call it quits. So I'm gonna give you 5 minutes if you want to throw something in the questions for John Payne or for Brennan. Please do so. Tag Dawn in Abernathy or reply to the comment.
Oh, she wants you to tag.
Well, okay. Hold on. Sorry. Okay, I'm gonna do that. But I still, there's other questions. Go ahead and tag her in it. I thought I did, but let me just double check.
I don't know how to do all that.
Oh, I starred 3 comments. So let's see. How do I make this? I can't do that. Okay. So I started that one. Why did Legal MO hire Steve Tilley and Tom Robbins?
She's her battery's going down too.
Oh no. Okay, so maybe screenshot it or something. I don't know. Screenshot this real quick.
He got his.
Okay, and then the other question that we had that I thought was a pretty good question. It says, I see the caregiver can have more patients, but why is the plant count not raised to match the patients? So that's a pretty good question, I thought. And then this one is just a comment on the social equity. So I don't think that's an actual question. So yes, and that was it. Those were the questions. We appreciate y'all for keeping tuning in. We appreciate you, Dawn. We appreciate you, Marion. We love you. Thank you so much. And thank you to Brennan England for providing this town hall. Thank you to the Cola Lounge. If you guys want to donate to the Cola Lounge, $ the Cola STL. Throw a couple bucks his way. You just moved to a new location. They're renovating, and they just had their first event. I think the other day was a puff past paint, so it was really dope. So yeah, check it out if you're in St. Louis. Definitely check it out in St. Louis. And she's like, what happened? Your phone died. It's fine. No big deal. So yeah, check them out in St. Louis. You support the cause and vote. In our opinion, vote no. I mean, do what you want, but vote. Definitely vote. And we're going to talk about this more on Wednesday. We're talking about more on Wednesday. So tune in on Wednesday. And you guys set your alerts and your alarms and everything. We're here 4:20 every Monday and Wednesday. And, we're not always talking about Missourians. I see y'all coming in the comments. We're not always talking about Missouri, but we are always talking about interesting things that are going on in and around our industry and our culture. So definitely tune in. I think we've proven ourselves to you right. We love y'all. Check us out. What is today? Monday. Check us out on Wednesday, the 26th at 4:20 Mountain Standard Time, 5:20 Central, for a whole new show. And we're going to continue the recaps. We're going to continue the recaps and the questions. And we're going to talk about this town hall too. So it'll be fun. Join us then. As always, you know what we say. Be nice to yourselves. Put your mask on before assisting others. It's very, very important.
Very important. Cultivate love. Bring it to you.
All of it, all of it. You are worthy of love.
Yes.
Don't forget that.
I'm sure I understand.
Oh, well, she's talking to me. So also, stay lifted, everybody.
Stay lifted.
And go vote.
Go vote.
Vote. We love you guys.